We're back with the finale, season finale of Season 6. Twaren back again, Part 2. I just realized I didn't do the summary of the episode. Starlight, Trixie, Thorax, and Discord saved the day. There you go. So, I'm going to go ahead and give you a bit of a sneak peek here. One of the things that happens a lot in my job is I go... Oh. As I try not to throw up, is when I go back, I can't even talk today. When I go back through a work with analysis mode on, oftentimes my opinion changes. Sometimes I think of a work even more highly. Sometimes something goes down. Like it's just, you know. Usually, if I'm being honest, it's usually the latter. Usually my opinion goes down. Sometimes it goes up and down. Like I like parts of it more and I like parts of it less, you know. I really, really liked this episode. Now, I don't know if they're ever going to follow through on the threads that have been laid in this, because I barely remember Season 7. I know Thorax shows up at least twice more after this, in Season 7. But this is a astonishingly well-constructed episode in many levels. And really, it only has it had one thing that I was jotting down as a flaw, and I realized isn't actually a flaw. So, let's go through this in order. I just wanted to preface with that, because this episode nailed it as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, a lot fewer of the bad writing moments, a lot fewer of the huhs. This was just bam, 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 bam. I could say it resolves a little bit too quickly, which is a very common problem in MLP, and that's part of one of the reasons why I mentioned we'll see if they ever follow through on this, because they laid down a lot of dominoes. But let's go back through this in order. So, this is the first season finale to not include a musical number. Now, I mentioned that specifically because I looked this up. The reason why is because there was no room. They had such a density of storytelling they wanted to tell that they had no space for it. I bring that up because that's probably one of the biggest times where they've admitted that. They wanted to tell this very large-scale, epic story. And that's probably why it resolved in the last 3 minutes. You know? So, you're a GM. And I'm going to use this parallel because this episode, along with many other episodes in Season 6, are designed as if someone is writing a D&D campaign. That's not a bad thing, by the way. It's a specific style of storytelling where you construct things that are designed to be a challenge for your characters, right? Something they can overcome, right? The map. So you have a party that consists of a changeling, okay, a mage, and freaking Discord. Now, one of those mages is pretty weak, but she's good at illusion magic. The other mage is extremely powerful and good at remixing magic. If we're being honest, even though Trixie's kind of the weak one out here, but the remaining 3 are powerhouses in their own right. And Discord is, if we're being honest, one of the highest tier individual characters in this freaking setting. Like, there are other circumstances where there's people who can best him, but you get my point, right? How do you bring him down? Now, obviously that leads to the chair. You know, the chair that removes his power. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back to that. But I'm okay with that. This is probably another example of cloud effect, if we're being honest. But I'm okay with it because of what they do with it later. Okay? So just do me a favor and remember that. But for right now, all we need to know is that all the magic doesn't work around here. So, Discord is now just a dude. Starlight is now just a pony. So that means the only members of their party that have any abilities is Thorax, and all he can do is shapeshift, and Trixie's tricks. So you have successfully brought a party that's effectively a level 20 party down to like level 2. If I could be blunt, that is clever. And that's the first reason why I'm okay with the chair. It's a hand wave, but it's a very precisely crafted hand wave. It is designed to carefully structure the situation so that it is still properly challenging while still being, you know, well designed, right? My opinion. Again, I'm thinking of this partially, mostly, from a GM perspective, from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective. If a GM came to me and designed this adventure, I would be applauding them, because this is brilliant. Anyways. So, this then leads to... Trixie says, figuring out the best way to do a thing before you actually do it. If you're paying attention, what she actually describes is an alpha strike, a properly planned alpha strike. It also makes perfect sense that Discord wouldn't bother. Like the kind of idea is almost alien to him. Why would he? He's Discord. He doesn't need to plan out an attack or a rescue. He just does it. This is actually a fascinating bit of storytelling, in my opinion. In general, it's very rare you see this in fiction, but when you have someone who is stupid powerful, who loses those powers, and they just have to cope with that because they've never had to. Why would I need a plan when I can just make something happen? Yeah, Discord is an A mover, for those of you who know what that means, and I'm not going to explain it. Now, what's funny here... Yeah, I was gonna compare this to Star Trek. That's a good comparison, S.A.R.O.S. I didn't think about that. Troy losing her powers. That's a good comparison. But I was going to compare it to when Q lost his powers and had to deal with being a human for a while, which is also a pretty good episode, by the way. Funnily enough. Now, I'm not going to compare that too much more. I just think it's fascinating how far down Discord is brought, because he has to walk. He has to walk. I love that. But it also makes perfect sense. This is something that fiction actually touches on a lot. In fact, one of the most common uses of this in fiction is a villain is so powerful they don't have to try anymore. And that's how the good guys usually think their way around the villain. I can name examples of this, but I don't want to spoil. Let's just say I can think of several fictions, I'm sure you can too, where the villain was so powerful they don't have to bother anymore, and that allows the good guys to outmaneuver them. Hell, if we want to be honest, Star Wars qualifies with frickin' Palpatine, who is just ludicrously powerful, and was in what I've called for years his retirement phase, where he just didn't give a damn anymore. And then Luke and Vader were able to outmaneuver him and defeat him in Return of the Jedi. There's better examples than that, but that's a very well-known one, so I don't feel bad mentioning it. So, Trixie naturally is already poking against Discord, who's already poking against him. I'm going to bring that up again in a moment, but it does make sense that these two personalities would bounce off of each other because they're so similar. And one of the most common things you see is two people who are very like each other tend to dislike each other. Also, if we're being honest, he probably thinks little of her because she can't actually do any real magic, and she thinks she is probably rather jealous of him because he can. Either way. So then we have the, Thor, and Thorax is just quiet. I'm actually going to bring that up too. This is a really well-constructed episode. This is challenging one of my favorites, to be completely honest with you. But then we have the countersign. I looked it up. It's called a countersign. We have the countersign thing. Klutzy Draconicus. I was wrong. I thought it was clumsy. Nice thing to put in there. Makes perfect sense. Again, intelligent. There's a lot of intelligence going on in this episode. It's really strange. So they get to the hive. The hive changes all the time. Okay, nice little tidbit. You'll notice that actually gives Thorax an automatic purpose in the party, right off the bat. That even ignoring the fact that he can shape change and all that, just by virtue of his knowledge and his ability to navigate, he is now literally invaluable to the party. And we see that GM mentality all over again here. And yeah, Starlight is already freaking out. There's so much subtlety in the animation of this episode. I'm going to skip over some of it, not on purpose, just because there's so many details. This would be an episode you could do a really deep dive on. This then leads to a scene. So I mentioned I'd bring this up again. Trixie and Discord get into a row again. They start really hashing it out. You know, you are self-absorbed, below-average illusionist. And she's like, self-absorbed? But this is the real reason why Discord and Trixie are arguing. Because once again, this is an episode all about Starlight. This is entirely focused on the central pillar that is Starlight's character. They are arguing because Starlight needs someone to try and help because she's freaking the hell out. Like she's losing it, as we've already pointed out, as the animations have shown, as this whole thing is highlighting. And she was already losing it in the previous episode before the changelings got involved, because of her worries and thoughts about, being in charge and all that fun stuff. And now, yeah, exactly, as Ross, I'm already freaking out. I can't deal with you two right now. But as psychology will show, when you are freaking out, one of the best ways to help most people is to help someone else from when they're freaking out. I can attest to this personally. I've actually pulled myself out of a panic attack before by helping someone else out who was also having a bit of a panic attack in the moment. That's actually happened to me. And psychology tends to show that this is a true statement regardless. It's because, from what I understand, you are mentally shifting all of your internal focus externally. So all of your attention is over here, and you don't get stuck, right? You don't get stuck in the loop. And that helps you to kind of break what a panic attack is, which is that kind of stuck spiral descent thing, right? Now, so Starlight is trying to help the two of them, and that's trying to focus her attention away from herself so that she can actually deal with this situation. Meanwhile, Thorax hasn't been hungry since he met Spike. Huh. And changelings are always hungry. Huh. Remember those. That's going to be important. And that's probably the example of why this episode is brilliant, in my opinion. We'll get there. We'll get there. So, naturally, Thorax starts hyperventilating, literally freaking out at the thought of being captured again. Of course he does. Who better to understand the torment than a former drone? Borg parallel, deliberate. There's a scene towards the beginning of iBorg, which is a season 5 or 6 episode of TNG, I forget which. It's the first time the Borg come back since Best of Both Worlds. And Patrick Stewart is one of the best actors in the freaking world. There's this scene right towards the beginning where they find out that it's a Borg ship. And Picard is there on his bridge in his captain's chair. But I can't describe, you have to watch the scene, or you just picture it right now. The way Patrick Stewart portrays Picard's reaction to finding out it's Borg is a masterclass in understated acting. He barely moves or changes his tone or facial expression, but you can actually see him completely freak out in that second of reaction. And he just goes into complete lockdown because he knows exactly what it's like being a former drone. To be perfectly blunt, if Picard was not the... Oh, absolutely, Aseros. If Picard was not a pillar of self-discipline and willpower, he probably would have literally started hyperventilating just like Thorax does in this very episode. Actually freaking out. Because, of course he does, right? Let's pay attention to the challenges, by the way. Once again, paralleling this to a GM adventure. What's the first challenge? The chair. Okay, so we can't use our magic. Cool, whatever. We'll have to deal with that. What's our second challenge? The patrol. We use one of our shapeshifters, and we use our smoke bombs to create a bunch of distractions in order to try and maneuver around that. Okay, that makes sense. What's our third challenge? The guards. This is a straight-up distraction play. Actually, if you're paying attention to the second time they use distractions. But they use Discord as a distraction directly in order to lure the guards away because, let's be honest, Discord is more than capable of leaning on his personality regardless of his powers. If you think about it. Of all of the things... If you look at Discord's stat sheet, his charisma is quite high. Hey, Carwelos. Yeah, it's pretty much a sacrificial distraction. Discord pretty much admits, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and be caught in order to do this. This then leads to him mentioning Fluttershy, which immediately leads to a nearby changeling changing into Fluttershy. This is messed up. Because what happens here is Discord is smart enough to pick up on this. Of course he is. And he calls it out. He's like, yeah, no, you're not. And then he sees all the other Fluttershy's, and the obviously evil Fluttershy mentions, you know, it would be really messed up if one of us was the real one. Because while his charisma is high, his wisdom is not. Or, to put this into less stat versions, he is intelligent enough to pick up on this, but emotionally invested enough to still fall for it. If we're being honest, at that point it was game anyways. They could have just jumped him. All they were doing was being cruel for the sake of cruelty. So, that's messed. And it, again, makes sense, doesn't it? As you guys said in chat, he failed his will. He failed his will saving roll. Figured it out, but couldn't manage it in the moment. It's the whole point of a will saving roll. Even for those of you who don't, a real quick bit of D&D logic for you. Will saving throws are usually for stuff that the person isn't consciously doing. Let's say that you're playing a character and you walk into a room. This is related, obviously, and you see your long lost brother who you're searching for. Now, you, the player, look at that and you say, well, that's a trap. But your character, even if they are smart enough to realize that's a trap, there's going to be that immediate, knee-jerk emotional reaction to the moment, right? That's what a will save is there for. Yeah, it can help with, like, mind control stuff and all that kind of stuff, too. But the real best usage of will saves, in my opinion, is the stuff that the character doesn't really have the emotional strength to deal with in the moment, even if they know better. And that is this in a nutshell. So then Discord goes and enjoys the rest. You notice that his voice acting is different. So. I don't actually know what you're referencing, Weird Moth, if you don't mind clarifying. So that, once again, doing different voice acting, as it should be. Hi. And obviously he fails the countersign. Third point, you pointed that out, Asaros. You see how the construction of this episode is brilliant. Love this episode. This is getting purple. I'm just going to tell you that right now. We'll debate episode 1, but episode 2 is getting a purple. This is a brilliant episode. So, fails the countersign at the third point, and this then leads to Trixie effectively sacrificing herself into the trap so that it's just Starlight and Thorax. Ta-da! Yeah, that was great. Oh, gotcha. I wasn't actually counting that since that was an alternate future, which didn't happen. You're right, though. Oh, the Trixie capture was terrifying. They actually managed to make this episode properly horrifying several times. You'll notice that they don't forget that this is still a show that children are going to watch, and I could point to an exact example of this. When it shows all of them being contained in the cocoons, in their prisons, they go out of their way to show the characters opening and closing their eyes kind of sleepily, so that the kids know they're not dead. That's why they did that. Guaranteed. So now we're down to 2. We've just got Starlight and Thorax. Now what? And once again, they've got, like, nothing here. They've got no real understanding of what to do or how to do it. And Starlight doesn't really have a plan, per se. But she makes do with what she has. And so she has... oh, no kidding, Trihexia. She's like, all right, Thorax, go be me. Distract them. Notice this is now the third time they've used... fourth time they've used distraction as a ploy. When you have no powers, right? And it's like, I gotta destroy the chair somehow. What else are you gonna do, right? I'll come back to that, though, because that's brilliant in its own right. So first we see Chrysalis come out. First of all, I love the inhuman? The in-pony? The way she moves. Yeah, just coming out, like, upside down, sideways, and then twisting her neck around is horrifically messed up. Yeah, I did notice that, actually, Vigilant. Very, very brilliantly done to emphasize her unnaturalness. Yeah, very alien. That's a good way to put that. Very alien. So she just comes out, hi. Whew. And then uh, Starlight's like, no, fake Starlight. It's actually Thorax. Says, Thorax will stop you. I'm going to point out, I'm going to start going a little bit more in depth into these scenes because these are why this episode absolutely nails it so hard. Chrysalis's reaction to Thorax being mentioned is instant, violent anger. Now, that's interesting in its own right, but I want you to pay attention to that, because what that is a ruler who rules through fear, reacting to someone who is not afraid of her. This is something I will actually bring up in the Pixar block of Ruminations next year with regards to A Bug's Life and Toy Story 3, both of which touch on this same type of villain. Now, I'm not going to spoil if you haven't seen those movies, but it's a type of villain who rules through terror. And they'll tell you, anybody who rules through terror is someone who... How do I phrase this? They need to challenge any and everything that challenges them. And yeah, Thorax is totally terrified. Did I say Thorax wasn't terrified? I'm confused. What did I say that would imply that Thorax is not terrified? But yeah, Saddam Hussein is a good example. There's plenty of real-life dictators who rule through fear by immediately and violently reacting to any challenge to their rule. So merely having Thorax being brought up immediately, he will suffer. Screw you. Chrysalis reacting to someone who wasn't. I'm more out of it than I thought, because that makes no sense at all, S.A. Ross. Chrysalis reacting to someone who wasn't afraid of her. Well, anyways, what I meant to say, and what I just said, was Chrysalis reacting to someone who was challenging her rule. I literally don't remember saying that. That's sad. It's taken a lot of my energy at this point just to stay conscious, so what do you want from me? So she violently reacts to this. This then leads to, recognizing that it's Thorax and Starlight smashing it with a rock. This is the crux right here. This is when the character-centric nature of this episode really comes full circle. Because Starlight can't do anything else. She's powerless. She has no more plans. She has no more nothing. The only thing she can do now is use what she knows to try and outmaneuver an opponent who is drastically more powerful than her. Sound familiar? So she gets Chrysalis talking. Every pony will do as I command, and we will feed on their love for generations. What does Starlight say in reaction to this? What if you didn't have to? Chrysalis reacts to this immediately and violently. Again. Ridiculous! I wrote it down. That's exactly what I said. Ridiculous! Just bam! Because once again, she violently reacts to being challenged on the matter. You know nothing of what it takes to be these people's leader. This is what... God, I'm sorry. I think I'm repeating myself. This is where the character-centric focus really comes into place. Because Starlight is now being directly compared to Chrysalis. By sheer virtue of that comparison, we can now infer several things. Starlight deliberately used her powers to keep those under her control. Which means, and I do firmly believe this, Chrysalis has been deliberately starving her own people to maintain power. I think with total certainty, Chrysalis knows that changelings don't need to be in a state of starvation, that they can share and feed, and then become their, what I would consider, so this is entering a little bit of headcanon, but I think the new form is actually more like their true form. That's what changelings should be. I think Chrysalis has been deliberately engineering this situation for some time to make them into their more broken forms, to maintain control. This is also where the chair comes in. You'll notice the chair is destroyed when the hive rejects this and reverts to what I would consider their true forms. I think the chair wasn't just to maintain the anti-magic field. I think Chrysalis specifically constructed the damn thing in order, as a tool, probably a drain on the magic in the area and the love, to keep them in that state of starvation. It couldn't stand being overloaded, and now, admittedly, we're talking pretty far into headcanon. But if I might be so bold, I think all the evidence for all of these theories is right there in the episode itself, and in the way it's presented. Most especially in how Chrysalis is put in direct comparison to Starlight. Because this also finally serves as the final mirror to Starlight as a character. Starlight has been afraid for this entire season, not counting that montage, the Star Trek V montage. Starlight has been afraid this whole season that she's Chrysalis. Not literally, of course, but you get it. This is what Starlight is afraid she is. Actually pretty similar to Luna's fears, if we're being honest. And she is proving totally and demonstrably that she is not. Because Chrysalis, at her core, is a horrible person. A truly monstrous person. And Starlight is not. Both have done bad things, and that shouldn't be dismissed. But that core does matter, and it does distinguish them substantially. Yeah, I would say Chrysalis is absolutely a Type 4 villain. Our first Type 4... Well, that's not true. No, I would say she's our first actual Type 4 villain in the show. It's debatable, of course. Yeah, Tyrek was the debatable, because Tyrek's a... You know... This also... Well, okay, so the chair is smashed. The changelings revert to their true forms. That's where I have in my notes that this is how they used to be, probably. Sombra's a Type 1 villain. Very classic. Very, very, very traditional. I absolutely love how they have a scene where Starlight reaches out to Chrysalis. Because if anyone's going to reach out to her darker half, it is her. She is the only one present who would have the emotional stability and the personal understanding to reach out to Chrysalis. And I love that Chrysalis rejects it. Yeah, exactly, S.A. Ross. It is probably the... S.A. Ross mentioned this earlier. I wanted to readdress this. This right here is when Starlight actually finally redeems herself for all the crap she's done. These moments and this build-up and this finale. This is when she's earned her redemption. And she takes that and pays it forward. Chrysalis bats her hand away. Because, thank you, Undead Elvis. Because not everyone can be redeemed. Not everyone wants to be redeemed. Chrysalis is a monster. And I do think it's important to have, every now and again, a character, a villain, especially, who just is a monster, the end, with regards to fiction. Now, we've had a few already. It's not like Chrysalis is the first, but you can see how Chrysalis is getting so much more development than Tyrek or Sombra did. So, Celestia, small point, Celestia immediately reaches out diplomatically to Thorax. Yep, that tracks. We have a new nation to deal with, after all. We're going to have to figure out some terraforming in the region. Are we sure Thorax is a good leader? No! But he's also the only candidate right now. So, that's another one of those... So, the way this continues to parallel real life, oftentimes, after the evil dictator is gone, the person who stood up against the evil dictator is put in charge. And that's usually not the person who should be in charge, historically speaking. Yeah, pretty much eclectic. Any port in a storm. Who should be in charge? Him. We'll see how Thor X develops. Like I said, he shows up at least 2 more times that I remember in Season 7. And I, of course, haven't seen Season 8 or 9 yet. This is when Starlight says everything that... Again, the show likes to show and then tell. Starlight then says everything I've already said about her fears, about how she's not as bad as she thinks she is, about how she's not Chrysalis, and, you know, her open apology. Some cool stuff there. And then, yeah, Discord and Trixie have a brief moment. And then... I don't know, am I the only one who thinks Discord and Trixie would make a cool duo every now and again? A background thing. Oh yeah, Discord immediately hugs Fluttershy. The episode just kind of winds up. It doesn't wind up too quickly. Well, I mean, it does. But it doesn't wind up too quickly. Like, it takes a minute. I don't know. Pointly being, this episode is freaking awesome. I will brook no argument on this one. Your opinions do not matter! Unless you really want to argue against me. But I think this is 100% a purple episode. This is an amazing episode. Brilliantly constructed, very character-centric, wonderful animation, brilliant design of world building, lots of building blocks for future stuff. Just oh wait, that's part 1. Whoops, I forgot to put part 2 here. Yeah, this is why I didn't rate the last one, because sometimes we rate these as a bundle. We're not going to rate these as a bundle. Part 2 is absolutely a ployple. By, who is this by? Michael Vogel, who's had a hell of a range of episodes, and Josh Haber, who has had some absolutely incredible episodes ever since Season 4. I mean, that doesn't surprise me, Baron. I mean, if we look at Josh Haber, we've got Castlemania, which is a red, Simple Ways, which was a yellow, Leap of Faith, which is his only bad episode, that was a green, Bloom and Gloom, that was a purple, and then Cutie Remark 1 and 2, Crystalling 1 and 2, Gift of Mod Pie, On Your Marks, Stranger Than Fiction, and The Fault of Our Cutie Marks, all of which were red. A statement I stand behind, I feel like adding. I agree, Trihexia. Chrysalis came very, very close to effectively ruling Equestria, and if I might be so bold to continue horrifying this for a second, I think that what Chrysalis would have eventually done is converted the rest of the ponies into something more like her changelings. Probably not literally, but imagine a world in which love is just being drained out of it on a large scale, like on a grand scale. You know, I talk all the time about the pattern. Chrysalis was trying really hard to throw an axe into the middle of that pattern. Yikes. That's messed to think about. Anyways, so now we gotta rate part 1. As I pointed out, part 1 did absolutely have some bad writing in it, which hurts it. Still had some really good stuff, and some very well-designed stuff, and good... I'm honestly thinking red for part 1, but what do you all think? It could have been great if it had been polished up a little bit more. And it would have been easy to polish. I explained it in the previous video. I explained how you would restructure it to shore up the gaps. Purple, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I mean, Trixie is awesome. And so is Starlight. Sorry. I mean, I think I'm just going to go with red. They did a lot of really good stuff. With the character stuff. And the relatability stuff. And the freaking out stuff. Let's go with red. And with that, we're done with Season 6. We're up to the final season I have seen, which is Season 7. Let's see here. Pull up Season 7 here. So I'm not... At this point, my knowledge of the show is dipping way out. Yep, there it is, all bottled up. We will actually be seeing that next week. I don't remember most of it. So, apparently next week we'll be having Celestial Advice and All Bottled Up. I know All Bottled Up, because I hate that episode. But I don't remember Celestial Advice, like, at all. So I don't know what that's about. Episode 3, then we're going to have Flurry of Emotions, which is... I don't remember that one. Rock Solid Friendship. I remember that one. If I think, because that's the one where Maud and Starlight become friends, and that's awesome. Fluttershy Leans In. I don't remember that one. Forever Philly. I do remember that one, because that hit. That hit. Parental Guidance. I remember that one. Hard to Say Anything. I remember that one. That one was not a great one. Yeah, Forever Philly was definitely a oof. For anybody who has a younger sibling or a niece or whatever, Forever Philly is one of those dagger straight to the heart kind of episodes. That's why that one stuck out so much for me. Honest Apple. Oh yeah, that's the fashion show one. I remember that. Royal Problem. I remember. That's a good one. Royal Problem is good. Not Asking for Trouble. That's a dumb episode. Discordant Harmony, that's an interesting episode. Perfect Pair, that's William Shatner. That's the only reason I remember that, to be completely honest. Fame and Misfortune. I don't remember that one. It's something about publishing the Friendship's Journal, or the Journal of Friendship, rather. Triple Threat. That's a good one. That's when Thorax comes back. That's when Ember and Thorax come back. And it's Ember and Thorax. Wait, that's a bad episode, isn't it? Shoot, because that's a Spike being dumb episode. Whatever. We'll get there. Campfire Tales. No idea what that is. Change of Changeling. Kinda remember that one. That's the other Thorax one. Daring Done. No idea what that one is. Isn't the main thing about you? I have no idea what... I have no memory of that one. Health of Information. Swamp Fever. That's an okay one. Because that's one of our build-up ones. So you mentioned what's the theme of Season 7. Well, Season 7's building up to the... I forget what they're called. The old group. They had a team. They had a term. And there's several episodes that build them up across Season 7. I would say that... the Pillars of Harmony. That's them. I would say Season 7 is big theme, as weird as it may sound, is world building. If you actually look at a lot of these episodes, there's a lot of world building in this one. Ignoring the obvious, each pillar has their own episode to help establish them. There's also a lot of establishment of what's going on with the dragons, what's going on with the changelings. We understand a little bit more about how the health services work within the setting. And the Cutie Mark Crusaders talk a little bit more about cutie marks, and also world build that, and yada, 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 yada. So yeah, no, I would say World 7. Season 7 is the world builder. And then it terminates with Shadowplay, which, I mean, you know, enough said, right? And Uncommon Bond. I remember liking Uncommon Bond quite a bit. And yeah, then we'll have the movie. But all of that is later. I'm gonna go collapse. I will see all of you, or some of you, this coming Thursday. And for the rest of you, I will see you next Sunday.